Welcome to A Better Lifestyle. My name is Richard Nesperance, and I go by the name of my man Richard. Today I have Richard Walsh with me. So welcome, Richard, to the show.
Thank you, Richard. Great to be here.
And no problem. Tell us a little bit about your story, and we'll get started.
You bet. Yeah. So been in business, been doing business for over 30 years, probably 35 plus years. So it goes way back and I won't get the whole thing, but it's been quite a journey. First 20 years, I built custom water features, became internationally recognized, steel sculptor, water feature builder, did really, really well till 08, 09, big economic collapse, took my business out as well. Well, it didn't take me out. I took my own business out. Those are the things I didn't do in business. So I own that, but it was a hard time. At the time, I had six small kids, a wife. We lost everything from our house to the business, everything else. We had to start over. So I wanted to do it different the second time. So I really got into what I did wrong. I connected a lot of dots, figured out what I did wrong those first 20 years. Again, I was very successful on the outward side, right? But I really realized there were a lot of things I didn't do in business that I should have, that I ignored. And that caused me to really, really take notice and fix that, to do it differently. You know, I had, again, six small kids. I wanted to be around for them. I didn't want it to be businesses, everything. That was kind of what I realized, Richard. I kind of had an epiphany in '09. One morning. I'm like, well, I am business first. I'm an award winning. I do this. I drive. I'm successful. I do all this stuff. And I realized at that time, as things were kind of crumbling around me, my kids didn't care what I did for work, what I drove, where we lived. That was not like what all they mattered was being with me. Right. I'd come home and they'd attack me and run and jump on me. And I'd leave. One of my sons would chase me down the driveway crying. I'm in my truck and looking out the rearview mirror at that, but I got to go to work. I got to get this stuff done because I run this business. And I said, if I continue down this path, all they're going to know is business comes first, and it's going to destroy their relationships, their marriages, right? Their friendships. And they're not going to have any of that either because they're going to follow what I did. They'll be business successful, again, from a world standpoint, but their life will be in shambles. I'm like, I'm not going to do that to them. So I love business. I want to do it again. I want to keep doing it and do that, but I'm going to do it differently. So my whole thing was reorganizing. How do you balance work and life, as they say, but really, really make it so I can still succeed very well in business, but have this time with my family and bring them up the way they should be brought up. So that was my big challenge. I did it. I did it with a couple of businesses, wrote a best-selling book called Escape the Owner Prison. That's the contractor's new way to scale, regain control, and fast-track growth while loving life. Because what I noticed was patterns, Richard, in businesses. Everyone gets going. They work really hard the first couple of years, right? We want to get our business off the ground and make things happen. There's no real way around that. You have to work very hard. But the problem is, next thing you know, 10 years has gone by and you've repeated the first 2 years 5 times. So you never really grow. You're trapped in your business. If you don't open the door, the business doesn't start. If you're not checking in, even when you're on vacation, things can go wrong, right? So I wanted to change how that worked and really give people the freedom they first wanted when they went into business, right? That's what it was all about. So that was what my book is based on. And that's what I do now. I have a goal of a movement. We're helping 10,000 business owners create freedom, profit, and impact in their business, because there's just so much more to it. So that kind of brings us up to where we're at.
So, what about you were in the Marine Corps before, right?
Yes, yeah. I came out of the Marines in 1987, and that was a great experience. I don't think I could have done it longer. Some people can do it for a lifetime. They can be what we call a lifer. I was not. I didn't take direction really well. It was kind of a struggle. So that's really why I'm a little more independent and doing my own business. That was an awesome time, though, and I've applied those principles in everything I do. Currently, my son is now in the Marine Corps. So that's really awesome, too, to see him in there thriving. He's doing really well. But that mindset is coming very handy for me as well. People ask, how do you go from losing everything to coming back and doing that with a family? And and I said, well, there's just that. It's kind of a grit thing, a no quit. In the Marine Corps, you kind of only have like one option, and that's to succeed. It's like succeed or die. I know it seems kind of harsh, but that's basically what it is, right? You accomplish the mission or you're probably not going to be living, right? So the whole goal is what is that, whatever it takes to accomplish the mission we do. So that for me was one of the driving forces. I think that was always in me anyways. And the Marine Corps kind of highlighted that. But I've always held on to that attitude of whatever it takes. Now, it also can be a curse because the first 20 years of my business, like I was going to be the one who did it. I was going to succeed. I was going to build all this stuff. I was going to get the awards. It was all about me, right? I wouldn't ask for help. I wouldn't take help. And I had a lot of amazing people around me, very, very successful people who were offering me advice. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I just wouldn't take it because it's me. It was my ego, my own pride, right? And these guys were like billionaires, Richard. It's not like they were just some guy who did okay in a business. I mean, these guys were big hitters and I didn't listen to them and they were right on every point. But it took that whole collapse for me to kind of realize, you know what? Help's okay. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to talk to someone who's already where you want to go, how they get there, find out that path. You don't have to be a trailblazer all the time, right? So it's really important. I always I hear with my kids, don't do what I did those 20 years. Like, don't be that. Get the help, get the coaching, get people who have been there, right? Compress that time, save those costly mistakes and bad decisions, right? Because there's so much wisdom in the world. So many people have already done what you want to do. Find them and let them help you. It'll just make your life so much better.
So, what are the core principles in the Marine that you see that was very applicable to your business life?
Yeah, I would say probably what the core principle was that there's no failure option, and we don't lose. We don't fail. It's just mission accomplishment is what it's all about. You get up the hill, right? You carry whatever you got to carry. You get in the battle, you get back. You achieve the objectives that are put before you, whatever it takes. And when you have that mindset, because business, Richard, it's just a roller coaster. It's everything goes wrong, right? You learn and you're going to hit a speed bump. You're going to run into a wall. Things are going to hit you out of the left, out of the right. It's going to be really, really difficult, very, very challenging. And that's why so many fail. So 97% of all startups fail within their first 5 years. So I always tell people, you got a better chance becoming a Navy SEAL than you do succeeding in business. They only fail 90% of the time, right? So it's a difficult road. It's not made for everyone, obviously, but it's all about how do you increase your probability, but you have to have that grit to push through and get through the setbacks. And life's like that in general, right? We all get setbacks. Everyone, you don't have to be in business to have setbacks. You don't have to be in business to have struggles and trouble and bad relationships and everything else. But in business, it's coming. And you're going to get it more than once or twice. So that mindset of mission accomplishment makes you just keep pressing through to make sure it happens.
So, when you're in the Marine Corps, it's very disciplined, structure, and all that. What would you say would be the main thing that you've applied into your business life that really had an impact?
Yeah, I would say the discipline aspect. So you have it's the three Ds: discipline, diligence, and determination. Okay, there's three Ds you want to do. So I think that is what it really boils down to. But discipline is doing things you don't want to do for something you want to have, right? That's what discipline is. It's getting up every morning, going to the gym and working out so you can be fit or skilled or whatever that looks like, right? Whatever we do, whatever becomes what I call a ritual in your life, right? We're defined by our rituals. So I have a certain morning structure I go through, right? I've created discipline around. So I wake at 4 a.m. I drink 32 ounces of water. I make up special mushroom coffee. I drink 2 of those. I do Bible study for an hour. Okay. 5:30, I leave the house. I go to the gym. I work out for an hour, do a very intense workout. I come back home. I shower. I get cleaned up for the day. I make my food. Right now I'm off to do work, right? Be on podcasts, coach, do all that kind of stuff. So that first 3-4 hours of the day is ritual. Right. It's the same every day, 7 days a week. I will wake up at 4 a.m. That's again, discipline. I'm going to sleep in because I'm not doing well, I live life every day. So every day I'll wake at 4 a.m. and I can do it without an alarm. This is just part of what I am. So I think that's the discipline aspect that so many people struggle with. And I'm not perfect by any means, but instilling discipline, doing hard things is what changes you. It's what makes you better and what keeps you moving forward.
Do you have any personal experience that you've encountered in the Marines that were very helpful in your business journey?
Yeah, there was a number of them. One thing was what I'd say one experience, one thing you learn in there is chain of command, right? So rank. So whether I'm a PFC, a Lance Corporal, or Corporal, there's always someone above you, but there's a chain and there's a structure you operate in that I found really, really helpful when I go to business and now when I coach businesses. People need to know their job, right? So what it really helped me was understanding whether you have a rank, a position, but you actually know exactly specifically what you're supposed to do. Okay. If whether we're in a firefight, we're training for this or that, we all have our job, right? We know how to execute it perfectly. So I took that into business and I found that so many people, so many business owners would tell people go do something, but they never showed them how. They just expect them to figure it out. That is a recipe for disaster. You might get lucky and they figure it out once in a while, but you can't hold them accountable. They don't really know what they're doing. Every day is a mystery for that employee. They don't know what you're going to throw at them today. No one wants to work at a place like that. So I learned that pretty early on. Like we need to know specifically what you need to do. What's your lane? What are you going to stay in? Right? How can you thrive in this position? And it's not thinking of, trying to fix things or figure it out or systemize the business for the boss. It's just people want to be told and shown what to do, how to do it, right? Do this and then let them run and be great at it. Right. And that's what a lot of business didn't have. And I learned that in the core, you learn to be great at what you do. And that's why, even though this happened a lot in Vietnam too, guys would lose, you'd lose a sergeant, then you'd lose a corporal. You had lance corporals who were like E3s running entire platoons because we're trained to step up into the next position. We're trained to take leadership roles, right? Within our rank, but if the rank disappears, we have to step up. So we can go down to the lowest rank, but we still run things. So you take those kind of lessons, those experiences that you're just thrown into, and now you got to figure it out. It's a good thing because you learn to be a problem solver. So that was a huge takeaway from that to again achieve objectives. So there's a lot of real benefits on that, and I'd say that was one of the primary ones. I agree. Yeah, we had a lot of great experiences, and we did different things, and you learn stuff like that from particular events. But really, it was the overall structure, the command structure that you learn to work in, and then you train people, and the next guy up helps the next guy, and it works that way. So that's probably the biggest takeaway.
So it goes in parallel a little bit with business operations and team building, right?
Yeah, exactly does. It's really important. Like it's if you've been in the service, so basically the military, we all have chain of command. But if you know that, it's really easy to transition into a business because you'll build your business with that kind of structure in mind. Doesn't mean you're going to have you're not the general per se, right? But you really are. You're about strategy. You're about building a battle plan, right? You're putting it together. You're moving people on the board, right? That's what you become. And that's kind of, and sharpen the spear. That's what we do, right? We have kind of a warrior mindset, really. We're honing entrepreneur warriors on the battlefield of business. Okay. So we take that mindset and we apply it to business because it is war. You're battling against obscurity. You're trying to get markets. You're trying to close deals. So it's a battle every day. So if you can combine that structured aspect, that learning principles, which are really unique to the Marine Corps, you can apply those to your business. Not like you want a bunch of Marines, right? But you understand how to operate. And that operation begins to give coherency and systemization to your business that will in turn create freedom for you because your people are empowered to do what they want to do in their positions.
We were talking before about solving problems. Uh, how is that like in the Marines, like transitioning that into the business?
So you'll get a problem. You'll always run into a problem. I mean, combat, There's a saying, Richard, it's called no battle plan ever survives the first shot. Okay. So there's your first problem, right? You had this great plan and they started shooting and it all fell to pieces. Well, now what are you going to do? You're not going to lay there and die. Okay, you're going to figure out how to, how to regroup, position yourself and move forward. That's problem solving, at the highest level because you're trying to stay alive. All right. So that's pretty intense, right? So you can work under extreme pressure, which is really good. But we always had to get to the outcome. We always had to achieve the outcome. We had to achieve the objective that we were given. Right. So we started thinking that way. And in business, it's no different. Right. So if you're the commander, like if I own the business, yes, I can solve problems, but how do I teach my people to solve problems? They have to be able to solve problems. So I'll give you a quick example. So one thing we do is called 3S, the 3S's. So there's an issue, right? So you're working for me, you have an issue. Well, I don't want you to run in my office and say, oh, I have a problem. I'm not going to talk to you. What you're going to do is first you're going to define the situation, what's going on. You're going to write this in an email, the situation. Then you're going to give me a couple solution recommendations. What would you do if you had to do it? No one to talk to. What would you do? And then you're going to give me your suggestions. Okay, I'd take solution number 2. Here's 3 solutions I think could work. I'm leaning towards number 2. Bring that to me. Then I can say, Richard, that's an excellent choice. Go with that. Or say, you know what? That may not work. You might want to go with option 3, or maybe I got a completely different solution. But you've done the work to figure it out, right? You understand what the problem is. You creating solutions, what you think will work, and then you come give me your suggestions on what you do. That's how someone learns, right? Do that a few times, all of a sudden you're building confidence on decision making, on problem solving. Now pretty soon you're just solving the problem. You don't have to run it by me every time there's a problem. I want them to be independent that way, to run a department, to run their teams, or even their own singular position, is to be able to solve their problems. It's like when you have kids and they ask them a question, they go, I don't know. Well, what do you say when a kid says, I don't know? You know what I say? I say, if you did know, what would you say? And they just look at you like, well, I guess I would do this. Okay, see, you got a solution. I don't know is just this natural response, right? It's like saying no. You say no because that stops the conversation. But you say, oh, I don't know. Well, if you did know, what would you say? And people look at you, then they tell you. They say, so people do know. They just throw this wall up because they're caught off guard. It's just a natural defense mechanism. So I do little things like that, which is kind of fun.
That involves a lot of communication skills, right?
It does. It does. And it's skill. I think Richard, it's skills and it's timing. You need to have the timing on responses, right? Because it's communication is really, really critical, right? It's the key to like all my business I work with. It's all about communicating, not just internally, but with their clients and their customers, right? Communication is huge. It's what's lacking the most in the world of business is communication, believe it or not. It's one of the number one detriments of all business is an inability to communicate properly. So that's a good point you made. But yeah, we really have to learn when to respond, how to respond, and have that timing, to be able to say the right thing. And a lot of that comes with experience, but you really have to listen. I think communication comes from listening. There's a great saying called listening is a silent form of flattery, right? If you listen to someone, people want to be heard, right? And if you truly listen, just like you're doing now, right? You're listening to me and you're coming back with a good question, right? That's because you're listening, right? You're not playing on your phone while I'm talking, right? You're actually listening to what I'm saying. So you can come back with a good question. It's awesome. That's why we can have a good conversation, right? You have to do the same thing in business. You have to truly listen and this is what I used to be guilty of early on. You say something and you're still saying it, and I've already formed my response, and I'm just ready to give you that response. Now you may say something really great after I've already done that. I don't hear that anymore because I've shut you off because I'm going to tell you what's what. So it's a really bad habit, and I had to break that. It took a while to break that, but like just, how I did it, kind of like what you're doing. I became a podcast host. That made me such a better listener. I kid you not. It made me such a good listener because you're like, listen, then you respond. And it really that's a great tool as people wouldn't really think of it. But being a podcast host like you're doing, Richard, is a great tool to become a better listener.
So this I'm going to move to from communication to leadership now. So it takes great leadership to also like to to drive the whole thing.
Yeah, I think it is. I think like people say, oh, all leaders, good leaders are out front. I said, well, not necessarily. I don't believe in that 100%. There's times when you need to be, but a lot of times what it is, leaders build leaders. That's what they do. You don't be a leader and be the only leader. I want to create leaders who are underneath me, right? Just again, back to the Marine Corps. Sergeants are training corporals, corporals are training lance corporals, right? Staff sergeants are training sergeants. You have the whole rank structure, but leaders have to create leaders. If you're just about running the team and not training anyone else up, sharing your wisdom on leadership and helping them help you, because good leadership can delegate, right? If I got to tell someone to go here or do this or do that, you have to delegate that. But you also have to make sure you do delegate it. You're not just telling them to do something they don't know how to do. You have to, right? We have to equip them. So that's where the good leadership is. Great leadership is not just the guy who stays out front. So again, in the Corps, we call that taking point. A lot of times those guys die, okay, because they're the first ones out there. So just my point being that good leaders it's way different than most people think, but I really think if good leaders empower other people to become leaders, that's how you build an organization.
I like when you were saying before, like business, the connection with business and being on the battlefield. Uh, how because there's always like competition or something going on in the business, or there's an issue that comes up. So how could what would be some skills like to apply, like to surround yourself and be really equipped for business war?
I think if you have a team, whether it's 2 people, 3 people, 30 people, it doesn't matter. I think everyone needs to be on the same page. They need to have the same vision the business is driving for, because if you've all had the same vision, you see the same things. You see the threats coming in, right? So if I got a line, we'll call it the wire out of the wire, you know what you're looking for. You know who the enemy is. You know what the enemy is. It's the same thing in business. You have people trying to take your market share. You have people leaving fake reviews on your platform, right? Just trying to knock you down. I mean, it goes all directions, right? But those are all shots fired. So you have to have the team that sees these and can counter these moves, that can prepare for it, can be proactive. They can be proactive when we're looking to take more market share. When we want to expand or grow and scale. We want people who understand the vision so we can move forward and achieve that. Right. That's really what it comes down to. When you have everyone, if someone just comes to work to put A into B all day, then go home, they're not, yes, they're producing A to B, and that's all they're doing, but they're not going to thrive there. They're not going to care about anything that else happens in the business. They don't care because they don't know it. Right. So one of the techniques is to really let every single person in the business experience every part of your business, even if it's like 2 hours a week you set aside. Like say, okay, I'm a CNC operator. Great. Come and spend 2 hours with sales and watch what they do. Experience it. Come with customer service. Experience it. Do it with them. Go to every level. Go to shipping. Work in shipping. Get this exposure so you understand, you have empathy for everybody else in the company, but you understand the entire process. We do what's called a strategic vision. We write it out where all of that inside a company is written out in almost kind of a story and, logic format. And that's really powerful. So people need to understand the vision, right? And if you experience every level in the business, that's how everyone gets on the same page. You build an incredible culture inside the business.
Talk to us a little bit about your book.
Escape the owner prison. And that's the contract's new way to scale, regain control, and fast track growth while loving life. So that book I wrote, again, it's got my story weaved into it. My first 20 years, the failure, the recovery from all that. But it really shows people how to operate a business. I'll call them fundamentals, because most people, like even in sports, right? What do they talk about? Fundamentals, right? The basic. If you're shooting a free throw, you shoot it the same every time, right? We practice on those layups. You practice fundamentals. So I kind of revisit all the fundamentals of business, customer service and branding and marketing, all this, the basics that you need to do, how to treat a customer, That's a fundamental thing that a lot of people don't do well. They don't know how to follow up on sales. They don't know how to follow up on their business in general. They don't know what their business should look like, how it should really operate. How do they actually systemize their business so it can operate without them? Right. That's where they get that freedom. So the book is really about that. And that owner prison is, like I said, Richard, I've seen the patterns. The patterns are again and again and again. And most businesses run on the same, kind of in the same plane, because no one teaches this. No one teaches people. You don't learn in school. Even if you have an MBA, you don't know how to run a business. You think you do because you have that, but you have no real world experience. And it's, again, an MBA I call is that battle plan that doesn't survive the first shot. That's what it is. I'm not knocking guys to get MBAs. It's all good, but I'm just telling you, it's not going to be what you think it is. And the first day you open the door, everything's going to change. Right. So we always want to get that real world experience. Right. And that's what I try to give in my book. Here's what I did. Here's what I didn't do. Here's what happened with the things I didn't do. Don't do what I didn't do. Okay. So you want to make sure you do this stuff so your business can succeed and it can weather an economic collapse. Because people think they just blame that economic collapse, right? I could too, but I can't because it's the things I didn't do. If every business in the world was wiped out from that, okay, you could blame the collapse. But a lot of businesses thrived. They did really well. How come? Figure that out and do that to your business. Recession proof your business. Collapse proof your business. There's things you can do. My book helps with that.
Last words in regards to everything we talked about.
Wow. Do hard things, in your life, whether you're in business or not, do hard things. Go out and challenge yourself and move forward. Anything difficult, anytime you have to suffer through anything, whether it's a hard workout or you got a big goal and you got to train for 3 months to run a marathon or whatever it is, that strengthens you. And if you can do it with others, even better. If there's people on your team, if you're a business owner, do that with your team because suffering is the greatest bond. And that's why you see combat buddies, right? Guys who go to war together, come back, they're lifetime friends. They're trench buddies. We call them trench buddies, right? Guys who have been there with it. When you suffer together, you create a really strong bond. So again, in business, do that. Friends, do hard things. It makes a difference. It'll make you so much better as a human being.
Where can people find you on social media or the internet?
I would go sharpenthespearcoaching.com. Sharpenthespearcoaching.com.
And you also have a podcast. Huh? What's the name of the podcast?
Escape the Owner Prison. It's called the ETOP podcast, ETOP. You can take a look at that. There's about 115 episodes on there. What I'd love to do for your audience, Richard? If they go to sharpenthespearcoaching.com, go to the contact form, send me a 1-sentence email, say, hey, I heard you on Richard's show. I'd love to get your book audio version for free. I'll send it to them. If they want the free audio version of my book, just send me a 1-sentence email from sharpenthespearcoaching.com and I'll shoot it right over to you. You'll be able to listen to my book for free with me reading it. How cool is that?